Good morning. My name's Russell Raphael from North London, Ulysses, and as our name suggests, we are in North London, sort of Muswell Hill, East Finchley kind of area, and we read Ulysses by James Joyce. Not only read, we discuss, we explain, but this is a reading video. In the Gabler edition, we're at the top of page 169, and in the Penguin, we're about 3/4 of the way down page 263. In the about 3/4 of the way through the Scylla Charybdis episode. And we'll finish that today. That's what I'm going to do in this video. I am going to read in the Penguin from about 3/4 of the way down, page 263, and I'll need to read about 16 or 17 pages in this video to the end of the episode. We remain in the National Library of Ireland, where Stephen Dedalus is trying to persuade some of the great and the good of the Dublin literary scene of the worthiness of his theory that when Shakespeare wrote Hamlet, indeed all of his plays, he drew on his real life experience and primarily the loss of his virginity, so it would seem, to Anne Hathaway, perhaps younger than he would have liked. And that might sound strange to many of us, many men of my generation, but it was a bit more than that. He then was forced to marry her, and what this did to him psychologically, and that's sort of what we're going to be exploring the rest of this episode, and we've done that to an extent so far. So the people he's seeking to persuade are John Eglinton, the deputy, the assistant librarian of Ireland of the Central Library, Richard Best, who will become in real life in due course in about 20 years the chief librarian of Ireland, A.E. George Russell, an intellectual, has now left. The chief librarian, Thomas Lister, comes and goes because he's wary of his duties, and he hasn't got the time just to sit there all the time. Apart from anything else, one of his duties has been to assist Leopold Bloom in seeking a copy of an edition of the Kilkenny People from 1903. And I suppose perhaps most significantly, Butt Mulligan has joined the fray, and we can't say it's necessarily to assist Stephen. We may feel occasionally quite the opposite. So that sort of sets the scene, and I'm going to start. He's just been talking about Shakespeare being a myriad-minded man. In fact, it was Mr. Best that said that. Coleridge called him myriad-minded. Stephen has said he was made in Germany, the champion French polisher of Italian scandal. So Shakespeare was sort of this composite of all various skills that he acquires during his life. So here we go with the word amplius. Amplius in societate humana hoc est maxime necessariam ut sit amicitia inter multos. St. Thomas, Stephen began. Ora pro nobis, Monk Mulligan groaned, sinking to a chair. There he keened a wailing tune. Pog mahon akush la machri. It's destroyed we are from this day. It's destroyed we are. Surely. All smiled their smiles. St. Thomas, Stephen smiling said, whose gorbeted works I enjoy reading in the original, writing of incest from a standpoint different from that of the New Viennese school Mr. McGee spoke of, likens it, in his wise and curious way, to an avarice of the emotions. He means that the love so given to one near in blood is covertly withheld from some stranger who, it may be, hungers for it. Jews, whom Christians tax with avarice, are of all races the most given to intermarriage. Accusations are made in anger. The Christian laws which built up the hordes of the Jews, for whom, as for the Lollards, storm was shelter, bound their affections too with hoops of steel. Whether these be sins or virtues, old Nobodaddy will tell us at doomsday leet, but a man who holds so tightly to what he calls his rights over what he calls his debts will hold tightly also to what he calls his rights over whom he calls his wife. No Sir Smile neighbour shall covet his ox, or his wife, or his manservant, or his maidservant, or his jackass, or his jenny-ass, Buckmulligan antiphoned. Gentle Will is being roughly handled. Gentle, Mr. Best said, gently. Which Will? Gagged sweetly Buckmulligan. We're getting mixed. The will to live, John Eglinton philosophised. For poor Anne, Will's widow, is the will to die. Requiescat, Stephen prayed. What of all the will to do? It has vanished long ago. She lies laid out in stark stiffness in that second best bed, the mobile queen, even though you proved that a bed in those days was as rare as a motor car is now, and that its carvings were the wonder of the 7 parishes. In old age she takes up with gospelers, once stayed at New Place and drank a quart of sack the town paid for, but in which bed he slept, it skills not to ask. And heard she had a soul. She read, or had read to her, his chapbooks, preferring them to the Merry Wives, and loosing her nightly waters on the Jordan, she thought over hooks and eyes for believers' breeches, and the most spiritual snuff-box to make the most devout souls sneeze. Venus had twisted her lips in prayer, agamboit of inwit, remorse of conscience. It is an age of exhausted whoredom groping for its God. History shows that to be true, inquit Eglintonus chronologus. The ages succeed one another, but we have it on high authority that a man's worst enemies shall be those of his own house and family. I feel that Russell is right. What do we care for his wife and father? We should say that only family poets have family lives. Falstaff was not a family man. I feel the fat knight is his supreme creation. Lean, he lay back, shy, denied I kindred, the unco guid. Shy, supping with the godless, he sneaks the cup. A sire in Ultonian Antrim baded him, visits him here on quarter days. Mr. McGee, sir, there's a gentleman to see you. Me? Says he's your father, sir. Give me my Wordsworth. And to McGee, more Matthew, a rugged, rough, rug-headed kern in strosses with buttoned codpiece, his nether stocks bemired with clobber of 10 forests, a wand of wilding in his hands. Your own, he knows your old fella, the widower, hurrying to her squalid death lair from gay Paris on the quayside. I touched his hand, the voice, new warmth speaking. Dr. Bob Kenny is attending her. The eyes that wish me well, but do not know me. Father, Stephen said, battling against hopelessness, is a necessary evil. He wrote the play in the months that followed his father's death. If you hold that he, a greying man, with 2 marriageable daughters, with 35 years of life, nel mezzo del camin di nostra vita, with 50 of experience, is the beardless undergraduate from Wittenberg, then you must hold that his 70-year-old mother is the lustful queen. No, the corpse of John Shakespeare does not walk the night. From hour to hour it rots and rots. He rests, disarmed of fatherhood, having devised that mystical estate upon his son. Boccaccio's Calandrino was the first and last man who felt himself with child. Fatherhood, in the sense of conscious begetting, is unknown to man. It is a mystical estate, an apostolic succession from only begetter to only begotten. On that mystery, and not on the Madonna, which the cunning Italian intellect flung to the mob of Europe, the Church is founded, like the world, macro and microcosm, upon the void, upon incertitude, upon unlikelihood. Amor matris, subjective and objective genitive, may be the only true thing in life. Paternity may be a legal fiction. Who is the father of any son that any son should love him or he any son? What the hell are you driving at? I know. Shut up, blast you. I have reasons. Amplius ad hoc iterum postea. Are you content to do this? They are sundered by a bodily shame so steadfast that the criminal annals of the world, stained with all other incest and bestialities, hardly record its breach. Sons with mothers, sires with daughters, lesbic sisters, love that dare not speak their name, nephews with grandmothers, jailbirds with keyhoes, queens with prize bulls. The son unborn mars beauty. Born, he brings pain, divides affection, increases care. He is a male. His growth is his father's decline. His youth, his father's envy. His friend, his father's enemy. In a rue, Monsieur le Prince, I thought it. What links them in nature? An instant of blind rot. Am I a father? If I were. Shrunken, uncertain hand. Sibelius, the African, subtlest heresiarch of all the beasts of the field, held that the father was himself his own son. The bulldog of Aquin, with whom no word should be impossible, refutes him. Well, if the father who has not a son be not a father, can the son who has not a father be a son? When Rutland Bacon, Southampton Shakespeare, or another poet of the same name in the Comedy of Errors, wrote Hamlet, he was not the father of his own son merely, but, being no more a son, he was, and felt himself, the father of all his race, the father of his own grandfather, the father of his unborn grandson, who, by the same token, never was born. For nature, as Mr. McGee understands her, abhors perfection. Eglinton eyes quick with pleasure looked up shy brightly, gladly glancing a merry Puritan through the twisted eglantine. Flatter, rarely but flatter. Himself, his own father, son Mulligan told himself. Wait, I am big with child. I have an unborn child in my brain. Oh, Pallas Athena, a play's the thing. Let me parturiate. He clasped his paunched brow with both birth-aiding hands. As for his family, Stephen said, his mother's name lives in the Forest of Arden. Her death brought him from the scene with Volumnia in Coriolanus. His boyson's death is the death scene of young Arthur in King John. Hamlet, the Black Prince, is Hamnet Shakespeare, who the girls in The Tempest, in Pericles, in Winter's Tale are, we know. Cleopatra, Fleshpot of Egypt, and Cressid and Venus are, we may guess. But there is another member of the family who is recorded. The plot thickens, John Eglinton said. The Quaker librarian, quaking, tiptoed in, quake his mask, quake with haste, quake, quack. Door closed. Cell, day. They list, 3. They. I, you, he, they. Come, mess. Stephen. He had brothers, Gilbert, Edmund, Richard. Gilbert in his old age told some cavaliers he got a pass for nowt from Mace the Gatherer one time mass he did, and he seen his brod Maester Will, the playwriter, up in Lunnon in a wrestling play and while a man on's back. The playhouse sausage filled Gilbert's soul. He is nowhere. but an Edmund and a Richard are recorded in the works of Sweet William. McGeeling John. Names. What's in a name? Best. That's my name, Richard. Don't you know? I hope you're going to say a good word for Richard, don't you know, for my sake? Laughter. Pat Mulligan, piano diminuendo, then outspoke Medical Dick to his comrade Medical Davy. Stephen. In the trinity of black wills, the villain shake bags, Iago, Richard Crookback, Edmund and King Lear, two bear the wicked uncle's names. Nay, that last play was written, or being written, while his brother Edmund lay dying in Southwark. Best. I hope Edmund's going to catch it. I don't want Richard, my name. Laughter. Quakalista, a tempo. But he that filches from me my good name. Stephen, stringendo. He has hidden his own name, a fair name, William, in the plays, a super here, a clown there, as a painter of old Italy set his face in a dark corner of his canvas. He has revealed it in the sonnets where there is will in overplus. Like John O'Gaunt, his name is dear to him, as dear as the coat of arms he towed it for, on a bent sable or spear or steeled argent, honorificabalitatis, dearer than his glory of greatest shake scene in the country. What's in a name? That is what we ask ourselves in childhood when we write the name that we are told is ours. A star, a day star, a fire drake rose at his birth. It shone by day in the heavens alone, brighter than Venus in the night, and by night it shone over Delta and Cassiopeia, the recumbent constellation which is the signature of his initial among the stars. The eyes watched it, low lying on the horizon, eastward of the bear, as he walked by the slumberous summer fields at midnight, returning from Shottery and from her arms. Both satisfied. I too. Don't tell him he was 9 years old when it was quenched. And from her arms. Wait to be wooed and won. I, me cock. Who will woo you? Read the skies. Altantimer ruminus, bus stephanuminus. Where is your configuration? Stephen, cut the bread even. SD, suadana, ja, da lui, gelindo risolve di non amar SD. What is that? Mr. Daedalus, the Quaker librarian, asked. Is it a celestial phenomenon? A star by night, Stephen said, a pillar of the cloud by day. What's more to speak? Stephen looked on his hat, his stick, his boots. Stephanus, my crown, my sword, his boots are spoiling the shape of my feet. Buy a pair. Hose in my socks. Handkerchief too. You make good use of the name, John Eglinton allowed. Your name is strange enough. I suppose it explains your fantastical humour. Me, McGee, Mulligan. Fabulous artificer, the hawk-like man, you flew. Where to? New Haven, Dieppe, steerage passenger. Paris and back, lapwing. Icarus, Pater 8. Sea bedabbled, fallen, weltering. Lapwing you are, lapwing he. Mr. Best, eager quietly, lifted his book to say, that's very interesting, because the brother motive, don't you know, we find it also in the old Irish myths. Just what you say, the three brothers, Shakespeare. In Grimm too, don't you know, the fairy tales, the third brother that marries the Sleeping Beauty and wins the best prize. Best of best, brothers. Good, better, best. The Quaker librarian's spring halted near. I should like to know, he said, which brother you... I understand you to suggest that there was misconduct with one of the brothers, but perhaps I'm anticipating. He caught himself in the act, looked at all, refrained. An attendant from the doorway called, Mr. Lister, Father Deneen was... Oh, Father Deneen, directly. Swiftly creaking, rectly, he was rectly gone. John Eglinton touched the foil. "Come," he said, "let's hear what you have to say of Richard and Edmund. You kept them for the last, didn't you?" "I'm asking you to remember those two noble kinsmen, Nuncle Richie and Nuncle Edmund," Stephen answered. "I feel I'm asking too much, perhaps. A brother is as easily forgotten as an umbrella." Lapwing. "Where is your brother? Apothecary's Hall, my whetstone. Him, then, Cranley, Mulligan, now these. Speech, but act, speech. They mock to try you, act. Be acted on." Lapwing. "I'm tired of my voice, the voice of Esau, my kingdom for a drink. On." "You will say those names were already in the chronicles." "You will say those names were already in the chronicles, which he took the stuff of his plays. Why did he take them rather than others? Richard, whoreson, crookback, misbegotten, makes love to a widowed Anne. What's in a name? Woos and wins her, a whoreson merry widow. Richard the Conqueror, third brother, came after William the Conquered. The other four acts of that play hang limply from that first. Of all his kings, Richard is the only king unshielded by Shakespeare's reverence, the angel of the world. Why is the underplot of King Lear, in which Edmund figures, lifted out of Sidney's Arcadia and spatchcocked onto a Celtic legend, older than history? "Oh, that was Will's way," John Eglinton defended. "And we should not now combine a Norse saga with an excerpt from a novel by George Meredith. Que voulez-vous? One would say. He puts Bohemia on the south coast and makes Ulysses quote Aristotle." "Why?" Stephen answered himself. "Because the theme of the false or the usurping or the adulterous brother, or all three in one, is to Shakespeare what the poor is not, always with him. The note of banishment, banishment from the heart, banishment from home, sounds uninterruptedly from the 'Two Gentlemen of Verona' onward till Prospero breaks his staff, buries it certain fathoms in the earth, and drowns his book. It doubles itself in the middle of his life, reflects itself in another, repeats itself, protasis, epitasis, catastasis, catastrophe. It repeats itself again when he is near the grave, when his married daughter Susan, chip of the old block, is accused of adultery. But it was the original sin that darkened his understanding, weakened his will, and left him a strong inclination to evil. The words are those of my lords bishops of Maynooth. An original sin, and, like original sin, committed by another in whose sin he too has sinned. It is between the lines of his last written words. It is petrified on his tombstone, under which her 4 bones are not to be laid. Age has not withered it. Beauty and peace have not done it away. It is in infinite variety everywhere in the world he has created, in Much Ado About Nothing, twice in As You Like It, in The Tempest, in Hamlet, in Measure for Measure, and in all the other plays which I have not read. He laughed to free his mind from his mind's bondage. Judge Eglinton summed up. The truth is midway, he affirmed. He is the ghost and the prince. He is all in all. He is, Stephen said. The boy of Act 1 is the mature man of Act 5, all in all. In Cymbeline, in Othello, he is bawd and cuckold. He acts and is acted on, lover of an ideal or a perversion. Like Jose, he kills the real Carmen. His unremitting intellect is the horn-mad Iago, ceaselessly willing that the more in him shall suffer. Cuckoo, cuckoo, Cock Mulligan clocked lewdly. Oh, word of fear! Dark Dome received, reverbed. And what a character is Iago! Undaunted, John Eglinton exclaimed. When all is said, Dumas fille, or is it Dumas père, is right. After God, Shakespeare has created most. It delights him not, nor women neither, Stephen said. He returns, after a life of absence, to that spot of earth where he was born, where he has always been man and boy, a silent witness, and there, his journey of life ended, he plants his mulberry tree in the earth. Then dies. The motion is ended. Gravediggers bury Hamlet, Pea, and Hamlet fee. A king and a prince at last in death with incidental music. And what though murdered and betrayed, bewept by all frail tender hearts for, Dane or Dubliner, sorrow for the dead is the only husband from whom they refuse to be divorced. If you like the epilogue, look long on it. Prosperous Prospero, the good man rewarded. Lizzie, Grandpa's lump of love, and Nuncle Richie, the bad man taken off by poetic justice to the place where the bad go. Strong curtain. He found in the world without as actual what was in the world within as possible. Maeterlinck says, if Socrates leaves his house today, he will find the sage seated on his doorstep. If Judas go forth tonight, it is to Judas his steps will tend. Every life is many days, day after day. We walk through ourselves, meeting robbers, ghosts, giants, old men, young men, wives, widows, brothers in love, but always meeting ourselves. The playwright who wrote the folio of this world and wrote it badly, he gave us light first and the sun 2 days later. The Lord of things as they are, whom the most Roman of Catholics call Diaboia, hangman God, is doubtless all in all of us, ostler and butcher, and would be board and cuckold too, but that in the economy of heaven, foretold by Hamlet, there are no more marriages, glorified man, an androgynous angel being a wife unto himself. Eureka! Buck Mulligan cried. Eureka! Suddenly happy, he jumped up and reached in a stride John Eglinton's desk. May I? He said. The Lord has spoken to Malachi. He began to scribble on a slip of paper. Take some slips from the counter going out. Those who are married, Mr. Best Juice Herald said, all save one shall live, the rest shall keep as they are. He laughed, unmarried at Eglinton, Johannes of Arts, a bachelor. Unwed, unfancied, ware of wiles. They finger ponder nightly each his variorum edition of the Taming of the Shrew. You are a delusion, said roundly John Eglinton to Stephen. You have brought us all this way to show us a French triangle. Do you believe your own theory? No, Stephen said promptly. Are you going to write it? Mr. Best asked. You ought to make it a dialogue, don't you know, like the Platonic dialogues Wilde wrote. John Eglinton doubly smiled. Well, in that case, he said, I don't see why you should expect payment for it, since you don't believe it yourself. Dowden believes there is some mystery in Hamlet, but will say no more. Herr Bleibtreu, the man Piper met in Berlin, who is working up that Rutland theory, believes that the secret is hidden in the Stratford Monument. He is going to visit the present Duke, Piper says, and prove to him that his ancestor wrote the plays. It will come as a surprise to his grace, but he believes his theory. I believe, O Lord, help my unbelief. That is, help me to believe, or help me to unbelieve. Helps believe. Egoman, to unbelieve. Other chap. You are the only contributor to Dana who asks for pieces of silver. Then I don't know about the next number. Fred Ryan wants space for an article on economics. Fred Ryan, 2 pieces of silver he lent me. Tide you over. Economics. For a guinea, Stephen said. You can publish this interview. But Mulligan stood up from his scribbling, laughing, and then gravely said, honeying malice, "I called upon the bard Kinch at his summer residence in Upper Mecklenburg Street, and found him deep in the study of the Summa Contra Gentiles, in the company of two gonorrheal ladies, Fresh Nelly and Rosalie the Coquille whore." He broke away. "Come, Kinch, come, wandering Angus of the birds. Come, Kinch, you've eaten all we left. I will serve your orts and offals." Stephen rose. "Life is many days. This will end." "We shall see you tonight," John Eglinton said. "Notre ami Moore says Malachi Mulligan must be there." Buck Mulligan flaunted his slip and Panama. "Monsieur Moore," he said, "lecturer on French letters to the French of Ireland. I'll be there. Come, Kinch, the bards must drink. Can you walk straight?" Laughing, he swell till 11, Irish night's entertainment, lubber. Stephen followed a lubber. "One day in the National Library we had a discussion," Shakes. "After his lob back I followed. I gal his kibe." Stephen, greeting then all amort, followed a lubber jester, a well-kept head, new barbered, out of the vaulted cell into a shattering daylight of no thoughts. What have I learned? Of them? Of me? Walk like Haynes now. The constant reader's room. In the reader's book, Cashel Boyle O'Connor Fitzmaurice Tisdall Farrell paraphes his polysyllables. Item. Was Hamlet mad? The Quakers pate God Lily with a pristine in book talk. Oh, please do, sir. I shall be most pleased. Amused, but Mulligan mused in pleasant humour with himself, self-nodding. A pleased bottom, the turnstile. Is that? Blue-ribboned hat, idly writing. What? Looked. The curving balustrade, smooth sliding Mincius. Puck Mulligan, Panama helmeted, went step by step, iambing, trolling. John Eglinton, my Joe John, won't you wed a wife? He sputtered to the air. Oh, that chinless Chinaman, Ching Chong Eglinton. And we went over to their playbacks, Haynes and I, the Plumbers Hall. Our players are creating a new art for Europe like the Greeks or Monsieur Metalink. Happy theatre. I smell the public sweat amongst. He spat blank. Forgot. Any more than he forgot the whipping lousy Lucy gave him, and left the Femme de 30 ans, and why no other children born, and his first child a girl. Afterward, go back. The door recluse still there, he has his cake, and the deuce, youngling, minion of pleasure, Fado's toyable fair hair. Hey, I forgot, he, Longworth and McCurdy Atkinson were there. Puck Mulligan footed featly, trilling. I hardly hear the purlieu cry or a Tommy talk as I pass one by before my thoughts begin to wrong on F. McCurdy Atkinson, the same that had the wooden leg and that filibustering fillibeg that never dared to slake his drought McGee that had the chinless mouth, being afraid to marry on earth, they masturbated for all they were worth. Just on, know thyself. Halted below me. A quizzer looks at me. I halt. Mournful mummer, Buck Mulligan moaned. Sing is left off wearing black to be like nature. Only crows, priests, and English coal are black. A laugh tripped over his lips. Longworth is awfully sick, he said. After what you wrote about that old hate Gregory. Oh, you inquisitional drunken Jesuit. She gets you a job on the paper, and then you go and slate to drivel to Jesus. Can't you do the Yeats touch? He went on and down, mopping and chanting with waving graceful arms. The most beautiful book that has come out of our country in my time. One thinks of Homer. He stopped at the stair foot. I have conceived a play for the mummers, he said solemnly. The pillared Moorish hall, shadows entwined, gone the 9 men's Maurice with caps of indices. In sweetly varying voices, Buck Mulligan read his tablet. Every man his own wife or a honeymoon in the hand, and national immorality in 3 orgasms by Balaky Mulligan. He turned a happy patches smirk to Stephen, saying, the disguise, I fear, is 10, but listen. He read Moccato. Characters. Toby Tostoff, a ruined Pole. Crab, a bushranger. Medical Dick and Medical Davy, 2 birds with 1 stone. Mother Grogan, a water carrier. Fresh Nellie and Rosalie, the cold key whore. He laughed, lolling a to and fro head, walking on followed by Stephen, and mirthfully he told the shadow souls of men, oh, tonight in the Camden Hall, when the daughters of Erin had to lift their skirts to step over you as you lay in your mulberry-coloured, multitudinous vomit. The most innocent son of Erin, Stephen said, for whom they ever lifted them. About to pass through the doorway, feeling one behind, he stood aside. Part. The moment is now. Where then? If Socrates leaves his house today, if Judas go forth tonight, why, that lies in space which I in time must come to, ineluctably. My will, his will that fronts me, seas between. A man passed out between them, bowing, greeting. Oh, good day again, Buck Mulligan said. The portico. Here I watch the birds for augury, Angus of the birds. They go, they come. Last night I flew, easily flew. Men wandered, streets of harlots after. A cream fruit melon he held to me. In, you will see. The wandering Jew, Buck Mulligan whispered with clown's awe. Did you see his eye? He looked upon you to lust after you. I fear thee, ancient mariner. Oh, Kinch, thou art in peril. Get thee a breech pad. Manor of Oxenford, day, Wilborough sun, over arch of bridge. A dark back went before them, step of apart, down, out by the gateway, under portcullis barbs. They followed. Offend me still. Speak on. Kind air defined the coins of houses in Kildare Street. No birds. Frail from the housetops, 2 plumes of smoke ascended, pluming, and in a floor of softness softly were blown. Cease to strive. Peace of the Druids, priests of Cymbeline. Hierophantic, from wide earth an altar. Laud we the gods, and let our crooked smokes climb to their nostrils from our blessed altars. And there we conclude episode 9, Scylla Charybdis. A quite lovely, interesting, fascinating episode. Lots to analyse there. Some pretty difficult, dense, complex stuff. Other aspects, as you probably picked up on, pretty robust and fairly rude, not to put too fine a point on things. But Mulligan naturally supplying that aspect. So thanks for joining me. That's the end of the reading for Scylla Charybdis. Please join me on the analysis videos by going to patreon.com/North London Ulysses. You'll find lots of analysis and also broader videos in the extra video series that look at things with a slightly wider lens. Right, thanks. See you next time. After the analysis of this, we move into Wandering Rocks. Bye bye.